You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is May 6, 2024, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We are bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your neighborhood. And I have to excuse my voice a little on this one. I might sound a little like RFK. It's if that maybe that's a compliment for me. I don't know, but yeah, I've got a little bit of a hoarse voice here today. So, but anyways, this is going to be a special show today. We're going to we don't have a guest with us, but because of all the guests we've been having, it allows some of our topics to pile up that we'd also like to talk about that are timely in the news. And this time Leon has been kind of chomping at the bit to get to some of these topics. So this episode is What's Bugging Leon. So we're going to talk about essentially political derangement is sort of the overarching topic of the show. And so we're going to talk about a little bit of the derangement that's happening among environmental sort of activist types. And then we're going to talk a little bit about some of this Trump derangement and how it's playing out in the courts. And we'll talk a little bit about sort of how some of that Trump derangement has sort of turned the media into thinking that there's this thing called rural white rage recently that we heard about a week or so ago on MSNBC. So we'll talk about that in our Knucklehead Noise Patrol. But before we get to any of that, let me introduce you to the rest of the panel. In our lower left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our lower right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. My name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. So jumping right into our Liberty quote, we always kick off with a Liberty quote now. And this time it is actually it's not necessarily somebody who's associated with liberty, but boy, I sure think this quote is a good one for everybody fighting for the cause of liberty. And so, James, can you bring it up? So this time we're talking about Amelia Earhart. And so she had a quote that I really love, and it said, "Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace." So, and, you talk about somebody who certainly was, trying to thread the needle in her life on a lot of things, and of course, ultimately wound up, disappearing on her big challenge of going around the world, flying around the world. But yeah, I thought, she certainly blazed a path for a lot of women in aviation, and so I think, that quote is really good, especially for all of us who are trying to blaze a path for liberty. So you guys have any thoughts on this quote or Amelia Earhart before we get going?
She threaded that needle, but missed that island.
Yeah, I think so.
But I shouldn't be lighthearted. I shouldn't be lighthearted about a fellow aviator meeting their demise because of navigational issues and who knows what. But because she was a great lady and did some amazing things for aviation. So one of my heroes or heroines or however that's pronounced, and yeah, I don't know. I'm a little perplexed. I think that's a very lofty notion. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. Well, to me, that means that sometimes you have to have the courage to confront like people that are assaulting your borders, for example, and other things in order to grant peace in your nation or your home or wherever you're at. So maybe that's it. I don't know.
I was wondering as I read. I mean, this is the first time I'm ever seeing this quote. Mm-hmm. So I was wondering about who is going to grant this peace. Who? I mean, she said courage is the price that life extracts for granting peace. Is that who is granting the peace? Is what I wonder about.
Life is granting the peace and wants courage in exchange for it. So here's your peace. Life is going to give you peace, but you have to have courage in order to get it. So courage. I think it's associated with fighting in some way or form for the peace that you're trying to achieve. From
this is what I was just about to ask, and so we are saying that in order to get that peace, we must be willing to fight. We must have the courage to fight for it. Isn't that what she's saying?
Yeah.
That's all I can glean out of it in my banged up mind.
I see it a little bit as, you got to have the courage, to get up off your knees at some point, right? I mean, you can live on your knees, but is that really anything you're going to be happy with? Is your soul going to be able to take that, when you get to the end of your life, that imagine somebody living in North Korea and having to keep quiet their whole life. That's kind of the way I see it. But, one of the things I was thinking about with her, though, and it's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but somebody posted something about Gilligan's Island recently, and the fact that maybe she hit an island somewhere out there, and nobody was really sure what happened. But man, today I tell you, a lot of people might be looking, who are living in California, to find one of those islands disappeared. She was near the last leg of her journey, right? She was coming back. She had already gone through Japan, I think, and was on her way back from that area, I think, and so that's sort of where she disappeared, I think. Yeah. So yeah.
So the point is here that you can live on your knees as a slave, or you can die on your feet as a man.
Yeah, I think a lot of warriors take that symbol that the piece of going out. You think of those Vikings and all those others, right? I mean, there's some piece about going out on your own 2 feet, right, instead of going out on your knees, type of thing, right? So
I don't know. Right now, I'm watching Masters of the Air, the kind of docudrama about World War II B-17 pilots and crew members, actually. And so, I mean, when they go on mission after mission, and if they survive and make it back, and they're still in one piece, and they're not all shot up, and they're barely make it home in a B-17 that's filled with bullet holes and fragments of shrapnel embedded in it, and they make it back, and then the courage is to get back in that thing the following morning to go on the next mission, and because those guys, especially that had experienced it already once or twice or many times, that had to take a lot of courage. And so in order to get peace, this is again going back to conflict, but sometimes you have to have that kind of courage in order to get peace out of life. I mean, that's what I get from it.
So you must be willing, at the end of the day, I guess what we're saying here is that in order to get that peace, we must be willing to fight for the peace.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
And that fighting for that peace takes the courage Amelia Earhart is speaking about.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Fair enough.
And maybe just to put it in more general term, maybe something in your life that you think is worth dying for, maybe that type of a thing, right? I mean, somebody who doesn't have anything that's worth dying for, man, it's hard to imagine what kind of person that is. If there's no cause they would stand up for.
and there's no purpose of living, right? I mean, if you're not willing to die for something, come on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's speaking of dying, I tell you, it's like our energy system and our grid, feels like it's kind of dying sometimes. And Leon, you really wanted us to talk about this sort of environmental derangement. So one of the things, and I know energy is your wheelhouse here, but we have this article from the Wall Street Journal where they talk about green subsidies being more wasteful than previously reported. And so certainly we see all of these sort of rah-rah things where politicians want to essentially send money to try and build up some of these other industries. And before we know it, there's subsidies everywhere, So what exactly are they getting at in this article, Leon, that you're all fired up about?
Because this whole green revolution is nothing but a fantasy. And too many people in California is falling for this fantasy. And now that reality is crashing, now that their fantasies are crashing into the walls of reality, now they're starting to talk about, oh my God, look at the rates we have to pay. Oh my God, look at all of these bad things. Let me tell you something here. 10, 15, 20 years ago, we were saying that the few of us who used to work at the California Energy Commission were saying these very same things that are about to happen. The grid was going to become unstable. This wind energy is never going to work. This sun energy, this solar energy is never going to work because the sun don't always shine and the wind don't always blow. But these idiots keep telling us, don't worry, it's all going to work out. But you see, the big problem is that we have a very big problem here in our society. That big problem is we love to fall for nice, fancy words. Look at how we started this segment. Green. Green subsidies. Like it's such a nice, wonderful thing. It is morally better than any other subsidy you can think about. It's nice and it's green. And these are the nice words they use. Then they come up with another word. They call it clean energy. Oh my God, that's so nice, wonderful. You know, they never tell you about all the birds that get killed because of this clean energy. And then the next one they like to give us is, oh, renewable energy. Oh, that is so nice and wonderful. Renewable. We can have energy forever because it's renewable, which is a bunch of damn nonsense. We could spend a whole show on that one. But the worst of it all is this thing they call alternative energy. What the hell is that? Energy is energy. It does not matter. But they like to call alternative energy because it's an alternative to that evil fossil fuel that we have that is fueling most of our nation today. Now, what the hell is going on in our society when all we do is fall for these nice, wonderful words, and when the walls crash upon our fantasies, then we start to realize, we start to cry and complain. You know the next big complaint is going to come is when we start to realize, you see all those nice, wonderful batteries that we have to put in these electric cars, and people like to drive around and tell us, oh, it's so nice and wonderful, we are saving the environment. That's the next one that's going to come when we realize how we strip mining all over the place to get the necessary minerals to put in those batteries. And what are we going to do with the batteries after they're dead? Well, how many disposal dumps you're going to have to build to get rid of those batteries? Oh, Lord, help us. Fantasies is going to crash into reality, and then we're going to learn some lessons here. God help us.
So,
that one.
Yeah, it's kind of the title of the show. So you have a special expertise in energy, I take it, Leon, from your
I do. I've worked in this area at one form or the other since 1981.
1981.
Yes.
So back in the 1990s, 1980s, 90s, and the 2000s, when you were still working in the 2000s, I'm assuming.
Yes, yeah. I worked until 2019.
Oh, okay. So, oh wow, plus another 19. Yeah, okay. So, no wonder you look so young. What type of energy issues were cropping up back then? Let's say, when you left in the 2010s, let's say.
Well, the biggest problem has been and always will be is a very simple thing. Okay, so take for instance wind energy, which is something that is highly promoted by the state. Okay, because it's supposed to be clean and it does not have any emissions associated with it. But they never tell you about something that is going on, something that is well known, something that we have tried to document when I was working. Wind energy, for one thing, has a big problem. It's intermittent. It's not dispatchable. See, like natural gas is dispatchable. We could turn it off and turn it on when we feel like it. But the wind does blow whenever it feels like it, and it doesn't blow all the time. But on top of all of that, on top of its intermittency, wind energy consumes a lot of birds. It killed the birds. It killed bats. I mean, this is a well-known, but you look in any one of the reports that the Energy Commission puts out, you never see any serious discussion about that problem. They had Ivanpah, which was a solar farm. It's just inside California on the way to Las Vegas. They build up this thing. They had this thing at this big solar farm that, oh my goodness, they're going to have all this fancy, wonderful energy is going to be flowing to the grid and everything going to be nice and wonderful. Again, another intermittent source. But then they realized it was a big problem. The bird was getting into the in the pathway of the rays. And what they were doing, we're having birds barbecue right there on the site. Thousands of birds. This was it was so scandalous that 60 Minutes did a piece on it at one time. So all these issues were coming about these so-called renewable energies. The renewable, it's so nice and wonderful. We have to give it a nice name, renewable energy. You know, it's going to save us and save the planet. We're not going to have any more pollution, and we're going to go to energy utopia. Okay.
Well, Leon, I'm surprised they didn't try to spin those cooked birds into a free lunch scenario. But,
I didn't think about that. You know, talking about that. You're talking about that, and I have been so upset and so what a rant about this thing. I've thought about. Just yesterday I was telling somebody I want to get a sign. And go walk in front of the California Energy Commission and say there's no such thing as clean energy. Just ask the dead birds. You know, I want to get a sign that says that.
Well, in addition to that, you've got the cost of manufacturing the big, tall towers and the blades themselves.
Exactly.
That's no small feat. Plus, you've got to truck those parts to the remote locations where they have enough wind to make it, as plausible as they can. And
Yes.
then after then you got the maintenance on those parts and those pieces, the windmills themselves, and the associated whatever structures they utilize, and then you've got to get rid of the broken ones that you've got to eventually they wear out, so you've got to throw parts of them away, and so you've got to dispose of all that.
And they don't know where they're going. Wait, Tim. Don't just skip over that, Tim. That's a big deal.
Okay.
They don't know where they're going to do when this wear-out material is occurring in abundance, as it will at some point in time. They have no plan of how they're going to dispose of this thing. They don't. Just like they don't have no plan about the batteries out of those nice, wonderful electric cars that is going to save the world. They don't have any plan about the batteries. They don't.
Well, I will jump in on that one. I know I've listened to a few talks recently from people on this stuff, and there are like recycling schemes that are fitting into these batteries right now, where some of these companies are trying to set up their product stream to essentially include the idea of bringing back a lot of this material and reusing it in the battery making process. So it's not completely that they're just junking all this stuff, but I mean, it is something they're starting to think about. So
Jason, we're going to spend a whole show on that one too. Okay. That's a fantasy, I'm telling you right now. Okay. We'll spend a whole show on that one. No, I'm not joking.
Well, sure. Well, let me bring in a few numbers too, since you brought up all this stuff, so people know, because they've certainly heard how mad you are about it. Now let's hear if people are just as mad when they find out how much they're going to pay for it here in California. So, James, maybe you could bring back up the visual again. But this was a story from Fox from earlier in February. And it talked about how these revelations where so many California ratepayers are getting hit by this, and they're finding it's about PG&E is saying it's about $35 a month is what bill payers can expect, and so they're saying that will average about $400 a year, and so this is taking a lot of these people by surprise. And like, there's this one gal in the story, they talk about a 90-year-old gal in San Francisco named Dorothy Lovell, and she apparently says it's almost like we're getting punished. And she's saying there's another person here, Rebecca Gallegos, said in San Francisco, saying I was not prepared, is what she said. I'm blown away at apparently going from that her bill increased by, she said, $162 from the prior month, I guess. Wow. So anyways, that seems to be even a little more than what they're talking about up here, a $400 average, but still $400, that's a lot of money for a lot of people. And
that's real
so
money, man. That's real money.
Yeah. So,
the thing is that I'm sorry. Are you finished, Jason? Are you finished with what you're saying? I'm sorry. Let me to cut you off.
well, I was gonna start segueing into some of the battery stuff you were talking about too, real quick. Let me hit that real quick too.
Okay.
So, as we're talking about all this virtue signaling and all of this, essentially greening of our grid, we're finding we don't have enough energy, on the grid is part of the problem here now. And one of the crazy things that this led to, and Leon started talking about electric vehicles, but our governor in this state, he came out with a mandate that said by 2035 he wanted 100% of new sales, not all sales. You could still buy a used car that was gas powered, but all new car sales, he wanted to be EVs. And I think they might have softened, allow some small percentages of hybrids in there, but essentially for the most part, it's pretty close to 100% EVs. And then he came out that summer after he gave his edict, and he said, "Hey, you guys who have EVs, don't plug them in because we have a power shortage." During the summer, so as they were going through rolling brownouts, and I mean, you think about this. We literally only have maybe a few percent of the market in California is EVs, right? So, I mean, the idea that you're going to push this to somewhere around, maybe 50% of the population, when you start to get into the late 30s and stuff. And that's going to be a lot of power drain on the system, and I mean, if they charge at night, maybe it will not be quite as devastating. But boy, I tell you, if you're trying to charge in the daytime, that's a lot of vehicles. So anyways, go ahead, Leon. I just wanted to bring that up.
No, but I wanted to back up to your story about the two women in San Francisco you're speaking about. Okay, I'd be willing to bet. I mean, I feel some compassion for them. Okay, I do. Even though I may sound harsh what I'm about to say. I'm willing to bet these two women were two of the left-wing fools who fell for all the nice, sweet words. Green energy, alternative energy, renewable energy, clean energy. I will bet my last dollar that these people were voting for some of these same damn policies. But now that reality have crashed, now that their fantasies have crashed into the wall of reality, now they start to figure out, oh my God, we're getting punished. Hey, getting punished. We're getting punished by your own damn voting. That's what they do.
Yeah, there's actually a cost to all this virtue signaling.
Exactly. All these virtue signaling operations eventually come to an end, and somebody gonna pay the price, and it's usually you and me. I wish you'll just figure that out, people in San Francisco. Tim, go ahead. I'm sorry. Tim, go ahead.
Well, geez, I mean, it's so easy to be cynical these days. So I don't know if I should even say anything. I mean, I started thinking about, well, somebody's going to crash into reality when the $34.4 trillion debt comes to slow the economy down so far and so deep that we'll never get out of it unless we crash the dollar. And anyway, that's another 2 or 3 shows, so don't want to go there.
Yeah. Leon was not bugging out about the debt right now. Well, that's another show.
And then the war in Ukraine and everything. It's just all the same old stuff. It's virtue signaling essentially to get what they want, and they always get what they want. They never seem to not get what they want. Now, what they want is not. It does not ever come to it doesn't better society or anything else, but that's just beside the point. I mean, they got their money. Whoever's behind the money goes into these electric cars and into these batteries and into these little whirlwind things that I fly over the top of every day, and I do fly over a bunch of them. And I look down.
Make sure you don't get chopped up by one of them.
We almost the condo is almost extinct in California because of those windmills. Seriously.
Is that right?
Yes, I'm not joking about this. Seriously.
Yeah, I didn't know that, but anyway, they it's a lot of virtue signaling for vested interests and just small little tiny interest groups that get the lion's share of this money that's being spent on all this nonsense. But in the end, we're going to have a fossil future. It's never going to go away. So this is my prediction. We will we will be fueling Cessna Caravans with Jet A in the year 2073. Okay.
There we go. There we go.
Well, let me just jump in about this thing about this not going away, because that's another part of the story I wanted to jump in on too, especially with all the green virtue signaling. So one of the problems we've had is that, in California, okay, so not only is most of this coming around climate change legislation is what's driving a lot of these sort of green energy type things. But we've actually had one of the cleanest sources of energy with respect to climate that you can get, and that's nuclear. And places like California have actually been shutting them down. So here you have recently that they have California had been trying to shut all of them down. And then suddenly after that whole fiasco of realizing, hey, we don't have enough energy to put all these electric cars on, suddenly they start saying, hey, wait a second, let's not shut down all of the nuclear power plants that we had. And so they actually have started to make a push to at least, I think, keep the last one going that they have here in California. And this is an article
Diablo Canyon. Yeah.
Yes. And there's an article from the Guardian on that. But the crazy thing is, these deranged environmentalists, again, they still want to shut these things down no matter what, which it's like, are you after solving climate problems or not? I mean, this is literally the best baseload source of power with respect to, low carbon energy that you can get. I mean, it's zero carbon energy, it's aside from the construction costs of the plant and stuff. But this does bring in another issue. So people have been afraid of fission, and that's one of the things that has been driving the lefties to sort of say, hey, we can't have any risk with respect to nuclear power. Well, guess what? We've actually got the next breakthrough happened at Sandia Labs. And if you're listening to this, we're going to talk about fusion a little bit, but if you're on our public access, now's the time when we're going to have to let you go, but you can catch the rest of this discussion and find out all about fusion and the derangement that's going on in the courts if you jump onto that. And you can also find a lot of other conversations we've had with liberty-oriented people and looking for solutions in their neighborhood and around the country. So check those out. But I guess back to the show. So, so where we're at now is we actually have fusion. There was a breakthrough in Lawrence Livermore Laboratories just about a year or so ago where they had got more energy out than they put in. And fusion fission is essentially where we're taking these really big, radioactive particles and we're essentially breaking them down. And by breaking them down, that's releasing heating water, and that's how we get the energy for that. Essentially turning steam turbines and such. But there's been some concerns that we've had a few cases. You had the issue in Russia with their meltdown that they had there, and then you had the issue in Japan where a lot of the safety stuff got knocked out of offline by extreme tidal wave and earthquake events.
The earthquake caused the tidal waves, yes. But go ahead, though.
Yeah. So you had this confluence of events that led to some complications in those areas, but we've actually got a solution for people that's too much risk for. We've got fusion has come online. And so the government, this is the Department of Energy's website. And so they have these, essentially, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the right word, but I guess you'd say generators, that you've got this fusion that's happening where essentially you're combining these hydrogen molecules together to make bigger elements. And that's what happens in the sun, essentially. That's what kind of energy we're getting out of the sun. So essentially, we're all living off of a fusion reactor with respect to the energy we get to the sun. But we're figuring out how to do this now on our planet. And like I said, Lawrence Livermore, they've had some successful experiments, and they're trying to scale that up. And this is one of the plants, they call it the tokamak, and they've actually got a scale version of this going on in Europe at the moment, and they're trying to get it up to the point where it is also putting out more energy. They're going to get it to the point where it produces tenfold out of essentially nothing. I mean, you're talking about hydrogen, so there's going to be no emissions that come out. There's not going to be any storage of toxic waste or anything like that. So this is all potentially good-looking stuff. And is it a reality soon? Well, this is tokamackenergy.com. They're talking about delivering this in the 2030s. So when we start talking about these kinds of timetables and industrial level delivery potentially in the next decade, it sort of starts begging the question, why are we focusing on all of these intermittent energy sources when we potentially have limitless clean energy through these fusion reactors? And it's really interesting how the technology, I mean, after all, they've got to handle temperatures beyond anything on Earth, and they use magnetic fields to hold this stuff, the plasma and everything. But it's really interesting stuff. But the idea is just why are we so focused on wind and solar when there's something this tangible coming up? Anyways, what do you guys think about all that?
The answer for why is very simple. Environmental derangement syndrome. That's what it is. They need Fauci to get a vaccine for them. Okay, they're really in trouble here. Seriously. I mean, it is true we had the Chernobyl accident in Russia. We did. Okay, there's no doubt about that. Okay, it is true that we had the 3 Mile Island incident. That is true. And it is true in Japan, because of the earthquake, we had a tidal wave that really caused some problems with the I forgot the name of it. I think it was Fuji something. I forgot the name of the nuclear site that had a problem. But you know what? There are many places in the world that have been using nuclear energy for the longest while, France in particular, and have done so safely without accident. France have been using nuclear energy, I think, for the last 80 years or something like that.
And they've been recycling some of their fuel as well too.
And recycling, yes.
Leon, can you give us an estimate of the total number of lives lost at Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, the one in Japan, every nuclear disaster ever in history? Total number of people killed or injured during that time?
Oh, that's a good question.
Start the Jeopardy music. Da, na, na.
Okay, you got me on that one. I don't have, but I can guarantee you though. I'll guarantee you one thing: it's a hell of a lot lower than the number of birds that have been killed by the windmills. I guarantee that.
Assuming a value of life for life, bird for human, but would you say it's more than 5,000 people that were killed in all those accidents?
Definitely not.
Not
Definitely.
More than 5,000. Would it be not more than 3,000 people?
Honestly, I would say it's probably maybe 1,000, maybe
1,000. Okay, let's double that.
But I'll check that and correct it on the next show.
Let's double that and call it 2,000. And just because I'm into aviation, all the accidents and all the people killed throughout the history of aviation has definitely been higher than 2,000 or 3,000 people. Okay.
Yes.
Complete all the numbers of people from every little aviation related accident still does not keep us from jumping into airplanes and flying around. Why is that? But why is it that nuclear fission comes along at first, now fusion, but even nuclear fission, and there, you have issues, especially, I don't count Russia. Sorry, I don't count Russia. Okay, they do everything half-assed. Okay,
exactly.
Chernobyl, yeah, we're talking about Chernobyl there.
Yeah, that Chernobyl thing was just poor design.
Poor design, poor execution by a bunch of people that work for the friggin' state, and they don't have a stake. Okay, so throw that one out. Okay, lost out.
Just to add on real quick to what you're saying about Chernobyl, though, just in case you're listening, they made I think it was a Netflix or somebody did a documentary on that, or a drama series on that, And it's an excellent series to jump into on how the government lies to cover things up. Because, boy, I tell you see some parallels between that and COVID. But anyways, go ahead, Tim.
Oh, we're going to go into that direction too. No. My point is, that being new technology, you're going to have issues, even if you throw Chernobyl out. You're going to still have a few issues here and there as you work out the bugs. Okay, and we're still working out bugs, even though we're the safest transportation system in the world. Aviation in general, worldwide, is the safest mode of transportation by far. It took a while to get there, and so it's going to be the same thing. It's just new stuff. I mean, sorry, that's just life. That's how it goes. Yeah. But why did they stop? In Leon, I had a student that was a nuclear physicist, one of the smartest people I ever met, and I don't know why he failed his first private pilot check ride, but that was just a kind of a lapse, But anyway, but the kid was brilliant. And he eventually passed his check ride. And the thing is that at the time, this it was something, as my recollection, what one senator in the federal levels, federal senator, put the kibosh on nuclear energy and I can't remember exactly if it was security related or what, but Leon, do you know anything more about why they just said, oh, let's stop? We can,
Well,
he used to work at Santa Onofre.
Yeah,
that's where he worked, and he lost his job and everything. They shut that down.
Yeah, they did shut down Santa Onofre. Yeah. But the whole thing about, the particular incident that you are speaking about, maybe I knew about it and I've forgotten, but I could guarantee you, this is what happened. Okay, one of these environmental groups got to this left-wing U.S. senator and had him or her add some crap to some bill that was going to leave the nuclear energy industry in disarray. That was I'm sure that some version of that occurred. I can guarantee you, because it have happened in many times over, in many different ways throughout, whether it's state or federal level. So some version of that happened, I'm sure.
Yeah, because isn't it also true that fission was approaching almost a zero? What's it called when you have the after effects, the garbage left over from nuclear fission?
The waste,
the nuclear waste was getting down to just almost nothing.
Well, it gets into the point of recycling. You see, the recycling. They start to get to some. Let me back up and say efficient recycling. Actually, they really get into that point. So yes, it was getting almost down to zero.
Oh, okay.
Not totally down, but it was getting down there.
Yeah.
Well, there still are a bunch of storage issues though around the country, because a lot of places are stuck storing stuff because they couldn't get Yucca Mountain to go in Nevada. I mean, it was a plan, should have worked, but everybody got wigged out about, hey, we don't want this glowing material coming to Nevada. Just this paranoia of
not my backyard.
Yeah. They'll have their acid rain. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say they'll have their acid rain, they'll have their particulates and all kinds of other pollution in the air from all the other sources. But the nuclear, oh my gosh, it's glowing and I'm scared. I don't know.
And yet at the same time, no attention paid to the future waste of batteries in this future car battery world. Yeah. Okay.
We'll have to talk about that one in the next one of my rants.
Okay.
Okay. Well, let's leave this environmental derangement and get on to the Trump derangement, so we have a little bit of time to talk about that. So I tell you, there's just been an absolute cavalcade of essentially legal derangement going on to keep Trump off the ballot, anything they can do. So they've been essentially just assaulting him across the board with one case after another. And if you don't think it's an assault, ask yourself why they all lined up to come right during election season. Right? Because a lot of these cases could have easily been brought up well before, but they've all been timed to essentially interfere with an election, which is exactly what the Democrats are trying to do here. And so they're doing it through both state and federal level cases. And what we're going to talk about now is a bunch of the state cases. So the one I wanted to jump on first, which came down about 3 or 4 weeks ago, but it is the case in New York, where they have essentially convicted Donald Trump of doing what every other real estate businessman does, and that's that he negotiates the value of his property, that it may be different for whoever the people are that involved, right? I mean, you go to an auction, there's no central planner who says what something is worth. It's what the two parties come together to decide what it's worth when you want to get a loan for something. And of course, the bigger the property is, the more specialized, the more experts you're going to have. And so it's certainly not something that you're just going to have some crazy judge sitting there telling everybody what things are worth. And so in New York, you had this case where literally they said that the amount that he came to negotiate honestly and voluntarily with the banks, because they agreed to this, where he said this property was worth I believe in the hundreds of millions of dollars. I can't remember exactly how much it was, but the judge was trying to say it's only worth 20 million, and he's doing that off of some tax document from a while back. And the idea was that banks are sophisticated entities. They know how much something is worth, and quite frankly, valuations, because of a lot of distortions in tax law, treat these things differently in different places too. And so he made a different valuation with this bank on what it was worth and how much he was borrowing based upon that, and also with the insurance companies, other sophisticated entities and all this. And and so the judge came back after him and said that, hey, okay, the New York prosecutor, the state of New York attorney general went after him on this. By the way, after promising, that's what she got elected on. She said,
Exactly.
if you elect me, I'm going to get Trump. Essentially is what she said. So, there's no doubt about any of this. But we do have a video to show a little bit about sort of what this means, because you got to start thinking, is this something that could affect anybody now in New York? Well, here's KOL clip number 1. This is a piece from Fox News. They start out talking with Trump's attorney, and then they get into an audio clip by Kathy Hochul, the government, trying to assure people that, hey, we're not coming after everybody, just Trump. So let's see that video clip. We get KOL number 1, James. So let's see. I guess we're having a little bit of trouble getting our video clip up, KOL 1. So, but this is essentially what was happening there, that they're looking to try to get this. They're essentially targeting the legal system after Trump. They're not trying to. So they're essentially tailoring the law to only go after Trump and trying to.
Let me play KL one, Jason. I think I
3
can
days,
play.
even if we choose to appeal
KOL
this, which
1.
we will, we have to post the bond, which is the full amount and some, and we will be prepared to do that. They picked the wrong guy to pick on, in my opinion, because he's strong, he's resilient, and he happens to have a lot of cash.
As his lawyer said, Donald Trump is not going down without a fight. The former president vowing to appeal the ruling in his New York City fraud trial that resulted in a staggering $355 million fine and banned him from operating a business in the city for 3 years. Meantime, questions now about the fate of his business empire. Joining us now, Charles Payne, host of Making Money on Fox Business. I want to play for you what Governor Kathy Hochul says. New Yorkers, she thinks it's all fine. Watch it.
This is really an extraordinarily unusual circumstance that the law-abiding and rule-following New Yorkers who are business people have nothing to worry about, because they're very different than Donald Trump and his behavior.
So there have been quite a few other business people, let alone that Kevin O'Leary came on to, it was either CNN or MSNBC, and he gave quite a long rant that said, hey, look, I'm not going to do business in New York anymore if I have to buy a building, because I don't know if you're just going to target these laws after me. So now suddenly there's a lot of angst about, hey, are these things going to come after? But literally Kathy Hochul showing the whole game here that, hey, then don't worry, we're not going after everybody. It's just Trump, which is election interference then, if it's literally just Trump that you're after.
Exactly.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait. Time. You're telling me that this Kathy Hochul, is she a prosecutor or what was she?
She's the governor of New York. Yeah.
Governor of New York. Okay. So she is sending her Justice Department against one particular person using a law that was enacted ages ago, and nobody else has ever used it for anything. But they're digging this up to go after one person. Is that what you're telling me?
Actually, Tim, it is worse than that, okay? It is worse than what you have just described. And let me tell you why it's worse than that, okay? The person that is going after Trump in particular is the Attorney General, a left-wing lunatic by the name of Letitia James. She is elected. Her very campaign was about prosecuting that illegitimate president. Her words, not mine, okay? Her campaign was based on that. This woman identified a criminal, quote unquote, and then found a crime. And she went after him. And then she found this left-wing lunatic, Arthur Oregon, or whatever the hell his name. And all of a sudden, we have Donald Trump fined $345 million plus interest on or whatever, how it is going to all go work out. It could be like $450 million. And all they're trying to do is to destroy his empire.
Yeah.
So it is not the fact, that, oh, the governor is just saying, pacifying everybody and blah, blah, blah. This was a campaign promise by the Attorney General of the state of New York to go after this man.
And it gets a little more murky than this too, because the swamp gets a little deeper, probably is the way to say it. If he wants to appeal this, which almost everybody thinks he will win on appeal, the issue is that they are saying in order to appeal in New York, you have to give the whole amount up that has been. So that means he has to raise $355 million, and quite frankly, it's not just this $355 million
plus the interest.
Let's add, but there's also another case in this mugging that New York is doing on Donald Trump, and we'll talk about that once we jump off of this. But if you have anything else on this one before we jump to the next one, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
I was just, Jason took Kevin O'Leary out of my mouth because that's what I was going to give the example of. As him and all other investors, he's not alone. He's not going to invest in property in New York City or New York State because they're going to be gun shy about getting the next person on the chopping block, where they'll go after them, just pick on them. Just hey, why not? If they can do it with one person, who says they can't do it with anybody else?
Yeah.
So
what Kathy Hochul did was the worst thing you could possibly do, because not only has she said that their intent is essentially to target Trump by saying nobody else has to worry, but by targeting Trump and saying it's okay, that literally means that anybody else the state decides to target in the future, it's up for it, right? Because the law doesn't say Donald Trump is the only one. The law is whatever they're interpreting it to be, and they're crazy land.
And
the second point I was going to make was this: that Democrats should be careful for what they wish, because this kind of stuff, turnabout is fair play, and the dirtier you get, the dirtier everybody else in the playground gets too. That mud wrestling is going to rub off on the Democrats, and sooner or later, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, what really makes me mad about this is us being libertarians. If we ever get our Malay up there, like they have in Argentina, if we ever get our guy, they're going to be attacked by this stuff too. And of course, our solution is to reduce the size and scope of government so that we won't be targeting anybody with it. But, if these guys get into legal warfare between the two of them, just attacking their enemies, well, we're going to get attacked so that we can never get up there in the first place. So this is just terrible.
Or maybe we'll be the only person left standing as a libertarian. Everybody else will be destitute from all the fines and interest.
Yeah. Or we'll all be moving to Argentina, maybe.
Moving to Argentina. But I want you guys to think about a deeper philosophical point, okay? Look at what is happening here. Okay, let's look at what is happening here. An attorney general of one of the largest states in the union goes to court and tells the court that someone have been defrauded by Donald Trump. She cannot name who was defrauded, but she knows someone was defrauded. Now remember,
and just to jump in on that, Leon, for the audience, the banks literally said during the court trial they would like to do business again with Donald Trump. So there is no victim here. I mean, they literally said, "Hey, we did." Oh, sorry. Okay, yes. Sorry about that. I didn't want you to leave it open.
And the banks, who should have been the most likely victim of fraud in all of this, they testified for Donald Trump. For Donald Trump, they testified. And as Jason said they would like to do business with him again. He was such a good customer. But yet, the state was able to say, in this great land of ours, in one of the most powerful, one of the largest states in the union, that somebody was defrauded, and they cannot tell us who was defrauded, but they know, this state, this all-powerful state, know that somebody was defrauded, and Donald Trump should pay for that. This is not America, okay? This is not America. This is the Soviet Union. This is China, but this is not America.
Is the $355 million going to this unnamed victim, or is it going to the state?
Oh, no, the state is going to use it for whatever they want to use it for. they're the named thief. We're naming the thief right now, and it's the state of New York. But speaking of the state of New York mugging people, let's jump to the next case here too. So in this case, we're talking in Leon, maybe or James, maybe one of you guys could bring. Okay, there we go. So this came out in the month ahead of that. And so Trump was accused of rape by this woman, E. Jean Carroll. And so it was something where they didn't charge him with a he wasn't actually criminally convicted of rape, but because
there was never a police report filed when the so-called incident occurred. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but she charged him, or they went after him for damages because he essentially said, "Hey, I would have never slept with this woman. She's not my type," and he said some other stuff about her. I want to play a video so you know just who we're talking about here, because it show you a little bit about who we're dealing with, and it's a little bit of an oddball. This is KOL clip number 2.
I was not thrown on the ground and ravished, which the word rape carries so many sexual connotation. This was not sexual. It hurt. It just you know.
Well, I think most people think of rape as it is a violent assault. It is not.
I think most people think of rape as being sexy.
Let's take a short break.
Think of the fantasies.
We're just going to take a quick break. If you can stick around, we'll talk more on the other side.
You're fascinating to talk to.
So
this was the woman who Donald Trump have to pay, supposed to pay $83 million to.
Well, and so this is the thing. He's not criminally convicted of this. She couldn't even say when it happened. Sounds a little bit like this whole Kavanaugh trial that we had, where somebody claims years ago I was raped during a political charged season, and but I can't tell you when or where it. In this case, she's saying where it happened. In the Kavanaugh case, they couldn't even say where it happened. They couldn't tell you when or where. In this case, she can't say when it happened. She's just saying the store it happened, and nobody else can remember it. And so I think maybe she might have some friend or something who remembers her talking about it. I can't remember in this particular case, but it's absolutely nuts in this that to defend yourself and saying, hey, this woman's crazy. Now, all of a sudden, the state has hit him with an $83 million verdict for disparaging her for coming after him, which is absolutely nuts again. But this is now almost $450 million now that we're talking about that Trump owes in the state of New York. So this is, just nuts. Just one more thing here in this whole mugging that Trump is going through in New York. Do you guys want to jump in on this particular thing?
Tim, you wanted to go?
Okay, here, just so the audience knows that I'm no friend of Donald Trump. This was an email that I received this morning from David Stockman. It's, I don't know if you can read that. The Donald's fourth year status derives me like never before, part one. And he goes into, this is David Stockman, no friend of Donald Trump, I might add. And he goes into all the tyrannical ways that Trump handled his fourth year in office. Now, and I happen to agree with David Stockman on most of the stuff. Okay. Now, but that being said, I do not condone injustice being done to a Donald Trump or a Joe Biden or a Tom, Dick, or Harry. I just don't care. Okay. What I care about is justice. And this is complete opposite of justice. This is injustice. And this is just political crap. And I hope the Democrats crash and burn because of it. And you can just see in Trump's numbers. Look at Trump's numbers. What happened there? Did that backfire on you, perhaps? Did you maybe overdo it a little bit, perhaps? But oh no, you're just so consumed with hatred for the guy that you can't see past your own nose at what's going on. And you will literally run the country into the ground just to keep Trump out of office, so that you can have the savior, whoever your savior of the day is.
Well, Tim, it's all in defense of democracy. Keep in mind, keeping Trump off the ballot in defense of democracy.
But this
Okay,
is
done.
where. Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done.
This is Trump derangement syndrome, right? This is what it's all about. So when we were just talking about the fraud case where Letitia James could go to court and said somebody was defrauded, but she couldn't tell you who. And in this woman here with this E. Jean Carroll, she can say that I was raped, but she couldn't tell you where or when, So it's all there. You see what this Trump derangement syndrome does to these people? And we're going to talk about this next case, and they're going to see that it's always something, but they could never tell you where, what, or how it happened, but they know it happened. And this is what the derangement syndrome does. And this is what I'm saying. These people are methodically undermining our very rights, our very citizenship. And Kathy Hochul comes out with this thing. Oh, don't worry. We are good people. We are really good people. We love everybody. It's just Donald Trump. He have a little problem. So we're going to take him out. And then we're going to be good with everybody else. But don't worry about that. They will find the next target. Right? They'll find the next target. Believe me, they always do.
Well, New York, as usual, they sort of steal the show, having Broadway and Manhattan and all that stuff. But Colorado wanted to get in on the act as well. And so they decided that because Trump is an insurrectionist, as they've determined him from January 6th. Now, keep in mind, he was never actually convicted in any court of insurrection, right? But they've determined, because they're all high on their own supply of listening to MSNBC and CNN, all their other experts, they've decided that Trump is a guilty insurrectionist. And so therefore they've decided that they can go to the Constitution and I believe it was the 24th Amendment or the 14th Amendment. 14th. Yeah, the 14th Amendment, which was designed to essentially say that the Confederates who went against the Union, they didn't want any of them in government. So they said, we're not going to allow people who've committed insurrection against the country to run for high office. Well, they've decided that Trump is an insurrectionist. Well, they've no definition. And yet the Supreme Court of Colorado went out and said, hey, look, the Attorney General said, hey, we want to put him off the ballot because he's an insurrectionist. And the Supreme Court of Colorado agreed. Well, guess what? SCOTUS got the case on Express, and they dealt with this right away before Super Tuesday because they wanted to make sure that this was all clear before everybody voted on Super Tuesday. And it was unanimous, 9-0 by the court that that Colorado did not have the ability to take him off the ballot for an arbitrary decision of the state of Colorado to just eliminate somebody from the ballot. So we do have KOL clip number 3. This will show you what happened within the media, the high on their own supply, MSNBC, CNN, and the rest of them. KOL 3.
That it was a 9-0 decision ruling that Donald Trump can be on the ballot in Colorado and other states.
I'm not confident that that will produce a result that's good for American democracy.
This is actually what I had been concerned about. I had been concerned that should it go to the Supreme Court, they would rule this way.
I'd laugh if it weren't so sad.
My next guest says Donald Trump is still an oath-breaking insurrectionist. Do you have confidence in the Supreme Court? Do you think this court is partisan?
The court itself may have overstepped.
The court went way further than it needed to go.
Our colleague Melissa Murray has called this Supreme Court the YOLO court.
The criticism of the court is that they're playing interference.
Not since Bush v. Gore have we seen a court that's had this many opportunities to interfere in the election.
Interfere? What are Democrats doing other than interfering with the election? All in defense of democracy. They want to make sure that other people can't choose who they prefer. What do you guys think of all this nonsense?
The Supreme Court is interfering with their interference.
Exactly.
Yeah. But notice the pattern here, okay? I want you to notice the pattern here. So just a little while ago, we spoke about the fraud case. The state of New York said somebody was defrauded, but they couldn't tell you who. Then we spoke about the rape case. And this woman went to court. She could say she was raped, and Trump defamed her, but she couldn't tell you when the rape occurred. Here we have now the state of Colorado saying Trump is an insurrectionist, but they can't tell you how or when he became an insurrectionist. When did it happen? They can't tell you. But they know he's one. They know it. So for that reason, they could take him off the ballot. Well, several other states have tried the same damn nonsense too, to remove him from the ballot. Now, look, I'm not here to defend Donald Trump, okay? But I'm here to defend the rights of us as citizens. And if we don't defend that right, you see that quote that they started the show with, Jason? If we don't defend that right, if we don't fight for that peace, we will have no peace. Because these people are not going to stop until they turn this into a socialist utopia. And we know what kind of socialist utopia we always get. One full of misery. That is the biggest production. Misery.
Yeah.
So we got to fight for this thing.
And after 3 years of Biden, we're seeing a lot of misery. Quite frankly, I don't think we could take another 4 years of that kind of misery. I wish we could get our Malay in there, but yeah, anyway, let me jump to the last case really quick here too. This one is a little more. This one is a little more has a little more meat to it. This has to do with Trump during the insurrection times, I guess you'd say, around that time after the 2020 election, where he went to Georgia and he was telling the governor that he wanted him to find the votes, was what this is all about in this particular case. And so the question is, was Trump interfering with the election at that point? And there's different interpretations of that, but the point is it's a little more reasonable of a trial than these other ones where they're clearly just targeting Trump. But in this particular case, though, they have absolutely sabotaged themselves, because they have essentially they have a prosecutor again who is sort of weaponizing the Georgia's Department of Justice, or their district attorney, to go after Trump in this case. And she's wound up hiring her boyfriend essentially to do the deed. So yes, exactly. So I mean, and somebody who has no experience in this,
knocking boots with the guy.
Yeah. So this is Fannie Willis at a point now where finally the governor is coming out and saying, "Hey, look, this is looking pretty political. And if this case were just by itself, you might be able to say there's some merit here. But when you got all these other cases, because Democrats are weaponizing the justice system everywhere against Trump, it just seems, like it makes it really hard to swallow on this particular one too, especially when you see the shenanigans that they're pulling here within their attorney general's office there. So this was.
Is the Fulton County District Attorney's Office?
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I was elevating her to Letitia James's status, but yeah, she's just over a city. So yeah, sorry about that. But yeah, so and apparently there's stories where she's told the Nathan Wade, that's her lover that she hired to prosecute Trump, who has no experience in this area. She's paying him more than the experienced people that she does have working for her on this. So, which she has also lied about too to the court as well, saying that she actually has paid, the others the same, I believe. Yeah. So. Yeah, so it's just nuts, and of course she's been a vocal spearhead about how they're going to get Trump as well. So I mean, this is, just nuts. But it has also caused many to talk about pulling her off the case as well. And there was an article in U.S. News and World Review talking about that. We did play a video clip for you before in our Knucklehead Noise Patrol a few months back, I think, on this, where Fani Willis was essentially taking her case not to the press, but to a black church, essentially. I mean, a church that was mainly, I guess that's the best way to describe it, I guess. Let's play that clip again real quick, just so you can hear how she's defending herself. Instead of going the route where you would, defend this within the media and in the court system, she's literally taking her arguments to her church. So here you go. This is KOL number 4.
You cannot expect black women to be perfect and save the world. The Lord is completing us. We are not perfect. We need your prayers. We need to be allowed to stumble. We need grace. With that kind of support, we will move mountains and do Jesus' will. Stumbling all the way.
So, it's just one thing after another, relying on their race and identity to carry them through, and not, just all kinds of crazy Democrat stuff, instead of just, hey, look, here's the evidence. Did Trump do it or not? And just keep it at that. What do you guys think of all this? Yet again, this one actually had some meat on the bones, by the way, and it may all be tanked because, the Democrats are putting people there who clearly aren't qualified for the job.
Well, I don't know about the meat on the bones part of this thing, because she charged this guy with some RICO charges, and we used to use that's a racketeering thing, and you used to use that for the mafia. I don't know how somebody contesting an election become to be equivalent to be interfering in an election that makes them equivalent to the mafia and that kind of stuff. I don't know how that works. So the meat and the bones are even that I would question. But you see this Fani Willis, she's the scum of the earth, okay? I mean that in every way it is said. You see, the Democrats, every single time they get in trouble, you know what's the first thing they do? You could always know when they're in trouble, they pull the race card. In that same speech, in that church, you know what Fani said? Fani said, I hired three special prosecutors. I paid them the same rate, which was a lie, but they're only attacking one. Why are they only attacking one? They had to play the race card. She called all of these people a bunch of racists because they questioned Nathan Wade's experience, and he had no experience in felonies or RICO cases. The man he used to do personal injury something, but his only qualification, his real qualifications, as far as we know, he and Fani was knocking boots, shall we say? Okay, that is his only qualification as far as we know. And now these people, these same people, these holier than thou people, and I mean that also because she was in a church when she made some of these statements, they have now they had an evidentiary hearing where when a lot of their conduct was called into question. These people with so much of their Trump derangement syndrome in their head, they went on the witness stand and they lied. They have evidence that relationship started before November 1st, 2021, when Nathan Wynn was hired. They have evidence of it. And they went on the witness stand and they lied about it. They committed a fraud on the court. These holy and endowed people, they committed a fraud on the court. And I hope this judge will have the balls to disqualify them from this case. I really do. My rant.
Or as Amelia Earhart would say, the courage.
The courage. Thank you.
That we could get some peace on this.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just crazy too, because all this came up because of her boyfriend's divorce trial.
Yes, exactly.
All this has come out in that. Yeah.
There are a lot of issues there. There are a lot of issues there. I didn't want to go too long because I know we already passed an hour and everything. I didn't want to go too long.
Yeah.
So, but so
sure.
much. Honestly, we could do. You see that whole thing in Georgia? We can do a whole show, an entire show, talking about all the issues that came out of that Georgia case, and it's still ongoing because the judge haven't yet ruled on whether they should be disqualified from the case. There's even a low. It's a low possibility. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's a low chance of it happening. Is that he may even dismiss the charges. I don't think it's going to happen, but there's a low chance that he may do that. And there's a lot of stuff going on. There's also some issues about the communication with the White House while this was going on. There's some issues with this is in Fulton County. There's an issue with Cobb County where there's another district attorney or deputy district attorney have now filed a motion in this case to say one of the witnesses, one of the critical witnesses, lied. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about, but it could take us all night. So.
Oh yeah. But regardless, this just shows that there's definitely sort of a legal beatdown that's going on by the Democrats on Trump, and that's essentially what we're talking about with all this derangement. But speaking of derangement, let's get to the final issue, the Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and in that. It's funny because in all these cases, when you get this one side becomes deranged and it's in politics, suddenly they start accusing the other side of being deranged, I guess, because, when you're deranged, you assume it's everybody else that's deranged, not you. And so this is a perfect example of that. MSNBC had this interview that they were doing on Morning Joe, and they brought in these two authors who had written this book called White Rural Rage, and they're saying that that's what we really have to be concerned about in this country, and that's what's really a threat to democracy is this white rural rage. So I do have this clip. Maybe you could bring up can you bring up the visual first? Good. So we got the visual there. So let's bring up the clip KNP1. So that'll show you kind of where this interview was going. I mean, we're not making anything up.
Is entitled White Rural Rage, the threat to American democracy. And Tom, we'll start with you. Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this. So we provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They're the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So there you have it. I mean, it's like such projection. It's unbelievable. They talk about suppressing the media. Who's been suppressing in this last, Even back in 2020, they literally were all involved in suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story that whole time. You talk about suppressing the media. And I mean, we found out that Joe Biden was trying to do essentially a ministry of truth. They called it a disinformation board within the Department of Homeland Security.
Disinformation governance board. Yes.
Yeah, but and this isn't like a new thing. This thing on MSNBC. This has been kind of a going thread here. Here's an article that talks about Chris Matthews' piece on the MSNBC where he was on, and they were talking about dealing with rural rage against the liberal establishment, and they said it's like fighting terrorism. So I mean, they're equating these people, in the middle of the country to terrorists and a threat to democracy because they don't vote Democrat. I mean, that's literally what the big threat is. And, one of the final spots on what they said, they said that these are people who are likely to justify violence in the ends of their, political ends. Well, in case they don't remember, this is CNN literally here during the riots in the Summer of Love. Fiery but mostly peaceful protesting. Yeah, in fact, we even have a clip that goes say this is not a mistake. This is literally the way these people are thinking. Can I play KNP2 here?
Many see the protests as the problem. No, the problem is what forced your fellow citizens to take to the streets. Persistent and poisonous inequities and injustice. And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
So there you have CNN. I mean, he just said that the people of the rural areas of the country are the threat to democracy, and yet here are Chris Cuomo's homies out there essentially saying, he said, hey, this is violence is all good when it's in the things, the causes we like. So yeah, well, what do you guys think about all this hypocrisy? I said it.
Well, if I had to start off, I would say that if the success of the fight against terrorism is equal to the success they're going to have against the real or imagined terrorists in the rural parts of America. The rural parts of America, the people there do not have anything to worry about because the war on terrorism has been an abject, dismal failure. It's meant to be from the very beginning.
It's always so funny, and you almost want to laugh if it wasn't so serious. So when a few years ago, after the 2020 election, actually, Georgia passed some laws about voter integrity, and our illustrious president went to Georgia and made a speech, and in that speech, he spoke about Jim Crow 2.0, and he even called it Jim Eagle. Notice, whenever the Democrats get in trouble, they always pull the race card. They always do. So look at now. They are sensing a shift in society. They are sensing that black men in particular, probably going to end up voting for Donald Trump in larger numbers. So what do they have to do? They have to pull the race card. They have to tell us that those white people, those evil white people in the rural areas of America, they had a problem. They are a threat to democracy. Notice they're calling them voters, and they're still calling them a threat to democracy, even though they're calling them voters. Listen to that irony. But the point is, though, they have to pull the race card whenever they sense a threat to their monopoly on black votes. They really have to pull that race card. Otherwise, they don't have a prayer. So watch out. This is only the first. Between now and November, this is only the first. More is to come. I will guarantee it. They will always pull that race card.
Yeah. And it's funny, a lot of this is becoming fairly desperate for them right now because of Biden's terrible border policies. There's been all these people in some of these sanctuary cities, people who are Black citizens in Chicago, in New York, and these other places, who are saying, hey, you're taking all these resources from our community and you're handing it to your sanctuary buddies. So this is absolutely this may really wind up being something where the Democrats may actually find out they're losing a fair amount of this block of the voters at this point, just because of some of the crazy mismanagement of the Biden administration. So yeah. Well,
I would just hope that, maybe some good, just like how much we hated the lockdowns and when they closed the schools in particular. But out of that came a little bit of good so far. We see more and more states moving towards school choice. Maybe this invasion that Biden caused and allowed, maybe it might do some good. And it will break the back of the grip that the Democrats have had on Black voters in this great America of ours. And I hope to God it does. I really do. I really hope to God it does.
Yeah. Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. So thanks so much for joining us for this one. Next week, we're going to have Susan Shelley on. She's a columnist. She writes for several Southern California newspapers. So we'll have her back on the show to talk about political issues going on in California and at the Supreme Court. But until next time, if you could think of what you can do in your community to be part of the solution. Maybe there's something you've seen us interview people who are running for office, people who are running organizations trying to fight for liberty. But there's something you can do in your community too to further the ball. So try and gain some inspiration and think about how you can help out in that. But until the next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Oh yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.